Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer. Welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I get to learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. Maybe a little television on this one as well. And joining me is my fellow SiftPop contributor and friend Jake Bourgeois. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely, for the fourth time. And
Sure.
before we jump in to the questions, would you like to shamelessly plug anything for all of our wonderful listeners and viewers?
Uh, I guess if you like my thoughts, I share some thoughts occasionally on Twitter at Jake underscore bourgeois. That's G Bourgeois. See, even I have trouble with it sometimes. Or on Letterbox at J Bourgeois.
There we go. And let's get things started with a couple of favorite related questions here. Now, Jake, what's your favorite movie scene?
Yeah, this is as per usual. I'm not going to answer the uh, scene. I actually think because I think I've talked about a couple of these movies previously, and I like to shake it up. But for this one, there aren't a ton of scenes where I get like that itch where you're like, I have to go to YouTube and watch this scene right now. There were only a few, and a couple of the movies I think I've talked about. I probably mentioned the Ip Man 10v1 scene before,
Mhm.
and like Rogue One always scene, other people mentioned. But there's a third that maybe the first time this movie gets mentioned on your show ever. Has anybody mentioned Sister Act 2 on your show before?
Well, to be fair, this is like 180 something episodes, so
Right,
maybe, but not
but
often.
I it's one of those, it's super rotten, I think, if you look at the tomato meter.
Mhm.
But I have nostalgia for it, and I just have fun with it. And there's a scene from that movie that I will watch like once a year, and by once a year, I'll get an itch for it, and then when I watch it, I have to watch it like 5 or 6 times. Have you seen Sister Act 2?
Not in a long time, and I cannot recall anything. So,
Okay, well, they're working on getting the choir together because that's their big thing. They're going to do the
mhm.
choir to save the school, and they have their first performance. And let me tell you, it's not going great to start off. That oh happy day, but then she gets him comfortable, and one of the kids who has the solo gets in his groove and hits the note. And so look up "Oh Happy Day" after we get up off the Zoom call, because everyone's just like, "Oh my God!" It's like that meme where it's like the people with the crazy guy just going across the screen, making the screen thing, like, oh, it's like one of those moments in cinema. And every time I watch it, I have to watch it like 10 more times. I will get off this Zoom and watch it again and immediately put it on because now I legitimately have to go watch it right
There you
now.
go. So we're all going to be checking out Sister Act 2 after watching this episode of Lost in the Wasteland. Now, we got a couple of questions that are paired together, basically. Who's your
Mm.
favorite movie protagonist?
Yeah, this was an interesting one, and I guess my answer goes to my sick, twisted taste in movies that is somehow balanced by my love of animation and like children's movies. But anyway, but we went sick and twisted for both these next ones. I'm going with Creasy in Man on Fire because I rationally love Man on Fire. It's probably a 7 out of 10 at best. But I love it's a 5 out of 5 for me. I love that movie, and Denzel is just amazing. I
Mhm.
love when we get to see him bond with young Dakota Fanning, and then just annihilate people once he goes on a revenge quest. It's amazing.
That's one that I watched a long time ago and really liked, and I have not watched it since. But it's very, very hard to argue against Denzel Washington. So there you go. I'm quite the huge fan of his Equalizer and him just straight murking everybody.
Oh, this is like, yeah, this is essentially a prequel to Equalizer. It's amazing because it's directed by Tony Scott. So you
Yep.
get all these crazy Tony Scott flourishes,
Mhm.
Christopher Walken as his best friend. It's fantastic.
You gotta check it out.
Oh,
So
he delivers the line of the movie. Fantastic.
now, who's your favorite antagonist?
Yeah, I decided not to go think too hard about this one. I have a number one movie of all time. It's Silence of the Lambs. I will watch Hannibal Lecter in whatever form you want to give him to me. Manhunter is really good. Silence of the Lambs amazing. Hannibal's good because you've got Anthony Hopkins. Red Dragons, g- really good. My friends and I rented Hannibal Rising from Blockbuster once, I guess. Hannibal TV show, great. Like any situation, Hannibal Lecter is a great antagonist, and I love him for it immensely.
Well, it's hard to argue against Hannibal Lecter, especially when Anthony Hopkins is playing him.
Oh,
His
he's so good.
Senator, nice suit.
Love his suit.
Or
Ah,
I'm sorry, Clarice, I have to go. I'm having an old friend for dinner.
was my love for puns spurred on by that moment? Probably not. I was already. That's just my
Might be a
family.
formative moment, though. Now, Jake, what's your favorite movie ending?
Ah, this was tough, and I just saw Arrival, so I was really tempted to go with that one because it's great. But I'm gonna stretch ending a little bit, and I'm going My Cousin Vinny. Like the can we
The
call the Marissa?
whole
Can we call the Marissa Tomei the ending of the? I know they do a couple things after,
towards the end of the movie.
but
Okay.
yeah, well,
I guess technically the ending is
if that doesn't
him
count,
like, I want to shake your hand.
yeah,
He's like,
fair enough. Fair enough. So the real answer is Arrival.
okay.
I just rewatched it, and it's amazing. It's a perfect ending to that crazy movie. I love
Mhm.
it so much.
That one blew my mind when I saw
Yeah,
that in theaters and you finally get to the end and realize what the hell was really going on that whole time. It's like it's one of those kinds of movies where you don't even know that there's a mystery to it until the
right.
very end of the movie. And it's like, wait a minute.
Because I was thinking about it, because it's one of those twists that, like everybody talks about now, and it's like, and I because I saw it in theaters, and I don't even remember if I figured it out at a point. Because I mean, obviously, you figure it out once you get the phone call, but it's just like I don't even remember if quote unquote figured it out because it's not that kind of movie. But like
Yeah.
once because like my recent rewatch was my first. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I hate myself and I hate giving myself joyous occasions. But it's one of those where like once you have it and you can go back, it's oh it's transformative.
Absolutely. Is quite the impactful, very emotional ending and really recontextualizes everything. So it's quite the impressive feat. Now, what's a film you wish you could watch for the first time in a theater?
So we're sort of gonna run on with the left. last question, because for some reason, something with like a little twist was
Mhm.
the sort of direction my mind took it with this question. So I'm just gonna go with one of the obvious ones. Like, give me a theater packed full of people watching The Sixth Sense for the first time.
Oh my
That
God.
would be amazing. Cause like I've
I would
tried
have.
to watch it with I watched it with my grandmother had never seen it, and I'm like, oh, you got to see this movie. And I like watched it with her, doing the thing where you're like sort of watching her for the reaction. She's just like does that thing where it's like, oh, I'm like, what? What do you mean, oh? Like that just happened. So I really need a cathartic moment for that because that did not deliver on that. So I need to watch that
You need to
with a
find
group
more
of
people
people.
show the Sixth Sense for the first time. But it's
Yeah.
so hard to like probably find people. Well, you can find younger people who probably never heard of the Sixth Sense, but it's hard to find people that were around at that time that don't know the twist at this point. So that would be amazing. I just remember even watching Split and losing my mind when Bruce Willis showed up at the end. I'm like, what? So I wish I could, I wish I could have seen any of those like big Shyamalan twists. The first Shyamalan movie I saw in a theater was After Earth, and what a disappointment.
Uh,
But anyway, that movie was way too long for 90 minutes. So bored. Now, I'm a big fan of documentaries. I don't know how many other people are. But Jake, what's a subject matter that you would want to see actually turned into a documentary?
yeah, this was one of the harder questions because doc, what counts as like a quote unquote documentary, the stuff they're always like cranking out is so I don't like it. There's they're not we're not giving stuff enough time to breathe. Everything's
Uh,
like, oh, we need a documentary on this right now. Or it's like so hagiographic, if you know what I mean. Oh, we're gonna do a quote unquote documentary, but we're really just sitting down with this person and talking to people who like them. So it's not really a documentary. So to come up with something I actually wanted to see, I need to go back far enough, but it's like, what do I do? But then I remembered a conversation with a former colleague, and she told me something about something I'd never heard of before. They're called vigilance committees. Do you know what these are?
no.
So apparently, back in the day, this used to happen in the county where I worked. Apparently, in around like Civil War era time, mid 1800s. So, like, you'd have people they'd be called vigilance committees, but really they were vigilantes, and they'd like,
Mob
yeah,
rules.
yeah, bring people to justice who were like horse thieves back in the day. And I just need to know more about these. So I need a documentary on that. Where's the Ken Burns 6-part documentary series on vigilance committees? Damn it.
Ken Burns, we know you're watching right now. There's your next big project. In between your next baseball episode of your documentary series, you gotta go make this. Jake wants it real bad. But no,
So
that's some crazy stuff, and it's interesting as we were just talking about young Mr. Lincoln on my other show, Welcome to the Wasteland, because there was definitely a
I
mob
did have that
rule.
thought. I did have
Yeah.
that thought. I'm like, oh, that sort of ties in sort of nicely.
Well, and their law and order is certainly inadequate, seeing as there's no rules in their courtrooms. But anyway, now don't stray away from the realm of movies too much on this interview show, but it's time to jump into some television for a bit. But Jake, what is your favorite television show?
Uh, Another tough one because there, I watch it. I don't watch a ton of TV, but I probably still watch more than most. But like, especially with the Netflix model, like
Mhm.
you binge on, oh, that was great, and then you forget about it. And
Yep.
even the stuff I watched when it was younger, like TV shows just don't stick in my head
Mhm.
like movies do. So I figured just take a show that I find myself going back to a lot because I don't do that enough. So by that logic, I settled on Star Wars The Clone Wars because
Nice.
I'm constantly going back and like just rewatching arcs of that show. Like,
Mhm.
I need something to watch. Let's watch this arc from the clone. Not every episode's a winner, but like there's some of the best Star Wars I've ever seen. And like once you get into uh some of the seasons where they are doing more big stuff, they really don't have any losers in there. And for a show that's like 22 episodes a season, that's really hard to do back in those old days of television.
Yeah.
So
Oh, you know what? I made a conscious decision because I have like 5 seasons left of Clone Wars, and I had 2 seasons left of Rebels to watch before, a bunch of these new Dave Filoni shows came out on Disney Plus. I'm like, well, the Rebels, in anticipation for Ahsoka. I still need to go back and especially watch last season with, Ahsoka and Clone Wars versus Darth Maul and everything. I'm just like, need to watch it.
yeah, I like to joke if Disney ever like put those last four episodes, just took out the episode breaks and just
Put in a
made it
theater.
into one, made it into like a quote unquote movie cut, that would probably be my favorite Star Wars movie. Which is
There you
ironic,
go.
which is ironic because like the theatrical Clone Wars movie, which is basically just a few episodes, is is awful. It's so bad. It's like 3 or 4 episodes of a bad Clone Wars arc. It's because there are a couple stinkers, like early on, as they're still figuring things out, and the movies, just like they took the worst episodes and put them together into a movie and
Terrible.
put it in theater. It's bad.
Now, Jake, what's your favorite television finale?
Yeah. Uh, even good. Oh, oh, I forgot. That's technically the finale. Sorry, I'm having an. All right. But also, I can't do the same answer two in a row. I forgot
You could if you wanted
clone
to.
that Clone Wars arc is the finale, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. And I just realized that it didn't even cross my mind. But also, that's bad YouTube. So I'm also not going to do that because that would be boring. So I'm also going to go with a boring answer. Uh, it's Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's
Nice.
they just nailed it. Like
Mhm.
it's an epic show. It's so good. Um, and to culminate that with a satisfying ending,
Mhm.
oh, it's we didn't realize how groundbreaking that would be when it happened. But with hindsight, we know how hard that is to pull off, and they did it. And it's even better, I think, now than it was um, when it originally aired, just because of hindsight. We
Yeah.
know how hard that is.
Which also, you finally get to your big bad, and it's Mark Hamill, and it just,
Doesn't it?
oh, it Avatar is such an amazing show, and they definitely stuck the landing. Which also, if you chose Clone Wars, also I've heard amazing things about that Mandalore finale, but definitely some great finales in animated shows. So good representation there. Now, Jake, which director do you think would best direct the story of your life?
Yeah. this was a tough one. I've had the sheet for weeks, and I literally just wrote down an answer. What 20 minutes ago?
Uh,
Uh, and we're keeping with the theme here. If you didn't know, I did an animation column on
mhm.
on SiftPop. You might have an inkling after this, because that seems to be where we're heading with a lot of these answers.
Uh-huh.
But also, it's like I couldn't think of like an actual like straightforward director that sort of worked. 'Cause I'm just boring, so that wouldn't be interesting. So let's go like esoteric in your own head type of things. We'll just go Pete Doctor. Make it some sort of like inside my head is probably a lot more interesting than what I'm doing out here. So just do it, an inside out like soul style. I know he didn't do soul, but that sort of style thing. Give it
Mhm.
to Pete Doctor. He can knock it out of the park.
There we go. We're getting Pixar in Jake's head. Pete Doctor style. I appreciate that. Now, Jake, my last question for you. What are the five films you would recommend to people made before you were born?
Yeah, I tried to do like sort of an interesting mix uh,
Okay.
with this question. Just sort of tried to mix up the type of. Oh, although now that I am looking at it, it is very classic heavy, but
Hey, we
eh,
appreciate them.
interesting.
It's not like
Interest.
says what year
Yeah,
were you born, Jake?
so yeah, this is 93. So I could have gone early 90s or
Yeah.
even 80s. But looking at this, uh, ooh, 60s maybe? Maybe not even 60s. This might be 50s is the latest we're going here, which is sort of surprising now that I look at it. So in no particular order, um, just because this was one I discovered last year that I really enjoyed. And it's a silent film that doesn't often, like when people are like, oh, a silent film, you need to watch. Not one you're going to get immediately very often, I don't think. Because they'll usually go with the Chaplin or like M or something like that.
Yep.
But I watched Phantom Carriage last year for the first time. It's spectacular. It's
Mhm.
so good. Um, Swedish horror film about a carriage that goes around collecting people. Last person to die before the new year has to drive the carriage. Uh, and it's haunting. And like I figured out another one of those sort of like Arrival where it's not really about the twist, but when you figure out what's going on, I might have dropped an F bomb when I figured out what was happening.
That's impactful.
But
I've heard
yeah,
amazing things. It's
so
on my watch list.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on. Uh Second one went Hitchcock because I think there probably has to be a Hitchcock on the list.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm going my personal favorite, Rear Window. Uh, like, just shows you everything a film could do, uh, even before sort of we get into modern filmmaking like we have here. Like, sets up everything you need to know. You know exactly what this community looks like through the lens, which is a perfect setup for something like this. There's a reason like crappy remakes of Rear Window come out like once a decade because the
Mhm.
premise is genius and nobody's quite captured like the whole oh you see something that happens like in a neighbor's window and what are you
Mhm.
gonna do about it. uh,
What are you gonna do about it?
so, um, next, sort of like Phantom Carriage, just a movie, uh, a rom com that I just don't think gets the love, no pun intended, that it needs to, because you've seen this movie, whether you know it or not, because you've
Mm,
seen either Sleepless in Seattle or An Affair to Remember,
mm,
but you've probably not seen or heard of the movie that A, The Affair to Remember is based on, like it's a literal ripoff, and then Sleepless in Seattle ripped off An Affair to Remember while referencing it. It's called Love Affair. Uh, and it's one of those weird classics that I like to throw on because, like, people like to complain about
yep.
remakes. This is a remake of An Affair to Remember, remade by the same director who made An Affair to Remember.
There you go.
Um, and it's my favorite of the three. It's really good, and nobody's seen it, let alone nobody's heard of it really, let alone seen it. So,
Things to be on my watch list.
next one. I don't I don't know why I put this on there. Maybe because it's a classic director that I've had. You know, you ever get those classic directors where you watch them, you're like, fine, this one's fine, it's
Mm,
good, I guess. It's good, it's fine. They're just not your vibe, really. Bergman's one of those directors for me. I watched a lot of Bergman, and they're
mm,
good. They're fine. And I like great. But I watched one that's just like, oh, yeah, I love that. That's
yeah.
great. And it's just so different than the others. And it's Autumn Sonata.
Okay.
So it's just a movie that I'm like, I can't. The rest of them, I'm like, yeah, I know he's great, but he's got this plotting. He's very slow and methodical. It's just like, yeah, okay, this one I got. So this is for all these people like, oh yeah, I don't get it. This is the one I got. Autumn Sonata.
Yeah. That is, I don't think I've watched that one. I've watched a lot of Bergman, so
Yeah,
it is
like the
definitely on
rest
my
of them.
list.
Yeah, I've watched like six, and they're all like super slow and plotting, and definitely have things to say. And it's like, uh-huh, this is you definitely have to, because like I'm okay with the plotting movie,
Mhm.
methodical movie, but it's just like, I think I watched too many of his movies packed too close together. It's like,
Gotta let it
ah,
breathe.
yeah.
And one more.
And last one, another classic. Most people have probably read this, although, you know, stupid people have probably banned this. So maybe when we get younger, you haven't. Because I don't know what people read in school anymore. But it's a classic for a reason. It's a great adaptation, but a great movie by itself with a great message. To Kill a Mockingbird has everything. It shows you how to do a great adaptation. It's a great story, and it's a great lead acting. Well, maybe he'd be supporting. What do you think? Gregory Peck, lead actor, supporting
Hot
actor.
lead, didn't he? So
Did he?
Gregory
Yeah,
Peck.
there. Ah, it's so good.
There's
Another one I
kids in it,
watched.
Jake. They can't possibly be the leads.
Yeah, fair enough.
Just ask Michelle Williams from The Fablemans, because she
Yeah,
totally was the lead actress.
yes, and I definitely didn't just listen to you make that point this morning. But anyway, but yeah, it's a classic for a reason. It's a story apparently more people need to hear.
There you go. Those are definitely a interesting wide range of films, and not surprised coming from you, Jake, giving all the viewers some interesting films to go take a dive into. I I might have to bump Phantom Carriage up on my list because I've heard nothing but amazing things, and now I'm getting antsy to watch it. So definitely want to check that one out. But how I always love to wrap up this show is having my guests ask me a question. So, Jake, what would you like to ask me, the Wasteland Reviewer?
Uh, so for some reason, the backdrop really got me thinking for you this week. So I'm just curious. You don't have to pick one. You can pick a couple because I know I'm putting you on a spot, and there's a lot to choose from. But like, what's your favorite like disc cover art? Like what's something like where you like you're passing your giant wall of movies and just pops every time you look at it.
An interesting question. I feel like most of the best ones are probably some of my criterions because they're so
That
good. I love
tracks.
the Wes Anderson criterions that are like the beautiful, like hand drawn, like versions of the movie. Um, Probably one I do. It's very classic, but I do absolutely love my Ben-Hur box set and that cover of just like Ben-Hur in giant letters.
Yeah,
They make fun of it at the end of History of the World one, so it was made fun of for a reason. Uh, Absolutely, my Blade Runner 2049 steelbook is just gorgeous. It is absolutely fantastic. But those are a couple that stand out. I'm trying to think of some of my other criterions that I really love the look of as I'm just, scanning here.
yeah. Great
I do
question by me.
I
It's
do
a great
love my
audience.
Night of the Hunter cover.
Okay.
It's a nice crisp black and white color, but
Yeah.
it looks great. It's awesome. Also another one, like it's simple,
Yeah.
but it's so good. Seven
Yep.
Samurai. And you know, you either want to get like a really because we get so many like post film posters now that are just like, you know, look how many characters we can squeeze on this poster kind of thing. But sometimes like the simple ones are so gorgeous. And like that Seven Samurai one is just so simple, but it's just perfect. So also the thing that covers creepy as hell. So those are some of the ones that stood out to me. But that was a very good question. But Jake, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me back.
And Jake will be back. And probably in a couple months, it looks like, for Welcome to the Wasteland. We'll have to see the next time he's back on here. Probably be after I cross the big 200 that I'm going to be coming up on this year, which is insane that I've been doing this show for almost close to 190 episodes at this point. But Jake, thank you so much for being 4 of those episodes.
Thank you.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.